coming down by, depending on, you could say 500, 600, 700%, depending on the way you want to, or you could say 80%. It doesn't matter. They're coming down by numbers that nobody ever thought possible. I got it all done, and I got it all approved, and all of the countries all over the world are going to pay more. They've agreed to pay more because of tariffs. I said, if you don't do it, we're going to have to tariff you, and they've all agreed to do it. Otherwise, they would have never done it. That was why no president has ever been able to get it done. Please.
Yeah, Mr. President, you took more than 600 deregulatory actions in your first year here. Coming from the business world, you know how unnecessary red tape can hinder business expansion, investment expansion. Given the magnitude of this announcement here today and the deregulatory action you took in your first year, how much economic growth can we expect to see as your term progresses?
It's a great question. I think that it'll be enormous. Who knows really what the number is, but I can tell you in terms of economic growth, we have $18 trillion being invested in this country right now, the most ever of any country by far, not even close. Think of it, no matter where, not just here. $18 trillion is coming in, and that money is being spent right now as we speak in new plants and equipments. And you may have heard Lee mention, I mentioned also, that over $100 billion is going to be spent in this very short period of time just by foreign auto companies on building auto plants in the United States. Some of the greatest thing that ever happened to the United Auto Workers. You know, the head man was not been nice to me, but now I understand he's saying this is the greatest auto president in history. But the auto workers gave me their vote, and they knew what I was doing, and they know what needed to be done. The tariffs saved them, but this is now taken it to a level that I think, Lee, that nobody ever thought even possible. They thought this was, nobody would have the courage to do it. We have to have the courage to do it because we're making America great again. This is a big factor in making our country great. If you look at some of these cars, they didn't even work. They had computers all over the place trying to save a half an ounce of fuel. We have fuel for the next 500 to 1,000 years under our feet. And they're trying like hell to save a half an ounce of fuel. The whole thing is just crazy. Please, go ahead, please.
Mr. President, is climate cooperation with China no longer in America's interest? And could you please confirm that you are going to visit China the first week of April?
Yeah, I'll be visiting President Xi in April. Look forward to it. He's coming here later in the year. And I look very much forward to it. No, our relationship with China is very good right now. And this is, not relevant too much having to do with China, what we're announcing today. But no, my relationship with President Xi is very good. Yes.
Mr. President, following your meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu yesterday, has your thinking changed at all as it relates to these negotiations with Iran or the timeline with Iran?
We have to make a deal. Otherwise, it's going to be very traumatic. Very traumatic. I don't want that to happen, but we have to make a deal. They should have made a deal the first time, and they got Midnight Hammer instead. And this will be very traumatic for Iran if they don't make a deal. Look, if they don't make a deal, then it'll be a different story. But we had a very good meeting yesterday with Bibi Netanyahu, and he understands. But it's ultimately up to me. If the deal isn't a very fair deal and a very good deal with Iran, then it's going to be I think a very difficult time for them in the back. I guess over the next month, something like that. Yeah, it should happen quickly. They should agree very quickly. Yeah.
Mr. President, we might be heading into a partial government shutdown. When was the last time you spoke with Chuck Schumer, and do you still feel Democrats are negotiating in good faith?
Well, a week ago I spoke, but we have to protect our law enforcement. Actually, the Supreme Court gave a ruling, or one of the courts gave a very big ruling on masks that you have the right to use them, for personal protection if you want. So I don't know how that interjects. They want our law enforcement to be totally vulnerable and put them in a lot of danger. They have some things that are really very, very hard to approve, frankly. As you know, it's only pretend. We had various of the other bills. That's all done, but we're left with this one. We have to protect our law enforcement. Very important. Please.
Why does Prime Minister Netanyahu want you to stop negotiating with Iran?
He is, you're saying stop entertaining, stop talking to them? Didn't say that. We didn't discuss that. I'll talk to them as long as I like, and we'll see if we can get a deal with them. And if we can't, we'll have to go to phase two. Phase two will be very tough for them. I'm not looking for that.
Mr. President, there are currently 0 Israeli hostages left in Gaza because of you. Thank you for that. And now that the war is ending in Gaza and Israel, I wanted to ask, do you believe Bibi bears any responsibility for the security failures that we saw on October 7th?
Well, October 7th was a rough time, and I guess everybody's responsible. It's you to look, but it was a terrible attack. It was a sneak attack. It was as violent as unfortunately, I've seen some of the results at levels that probably even you, good reporter, but probably you haven't seen. It was a horrible thing that took place. People were surprised. It was a surprise attack. Nobody saw that coming. He didn't see it coming. Nobody else would have seen it coming if they were in his position, I don't believe. But I can tell you he's been a very good wartime prime minister. He's been very strong. We've worked with him very well. We had tremendous success with Iran and everything else we've done. And he really has been. He's been, extraordinary as far as a wartime prime minister. Not easy. And, you have a president that refuses to give him a pardon. I think that man should be ashamed of himself. A pardon over this trial that's going on. The president of Israel, the primary power he's got is the power to give pardons. And he's not, he said he's given it 5 different times, but he doesn't want to do it because I guess he loses his power. I think the people of Israel should really shame him. He's disgraceful for not giving it. He should give it. But Bibi's been a great wartime prime minister, and I've been the best friend to Israel I think that they've ever had. A lot of people say beyond presidents that they've ever had, and we will continue to be. Yes, ma'am.
On the SAVE Act, Mr. President, voter ID polls very well nationally. Even the majority of Democrat voters want it.
Right.
So why do you think Senate Democrats are resisting the SAVE Act, and what is your strategy and realistic pathway to getting the SAVE Act passed to ensure free and fair elections for the next generation?
It's such a great question. I appreciate it, actually, because it's called the Save America Act. We've changed the name. It's the Save America Act, and the Democrats are against it. I heard one of them say, we will stop the Save America Act. No, we're trying to save America. And it has to do with largely voting. And basically, it's got 3 very simple points. It's got voter ID, photo ID, but voter ID with a photo, right? It's got the confirmation of U.S. citizenship. You have to be a citizen. So you have a vote, you have an ID. That's about a 99% one. And I think 90% with Democrats. Then you have confirmation U.S. citizenship. That's about a 99% one with Republicans, about 86% with Democrats, except Democrat politicians because they cheat on elections. And then you have no mail-in ballots. And there would be no mail-in ballots, very important. We're the only country in the world that does a system like we do. We're the only country in the world that has mail-in ballots. The way we do this is unbelievable. It guarantees cheating. So it's no mail-in ballots with the exception of disability, illness, military, or if you're traveling, you can get an exemption. If you happen to be out of the country for a good reason, you can have an exemption. So with exceptions, it's no mail-in ballots, and that will assure the security of our crooked elections. We have crooked elections, yeah.
Mr. President, have you fired or disciplined that staffer who posted the video from your account that included the Obamas?
No, I haven't. That was a video on, as you know, voter fraud, and fairly long video, and they had a little piece and had to do with the Lion King. It's been very well, it's been shown all over the place long before that was posted. But that was a very strong, and I'm sure you saw it, a very strong piece on voter fraud. And the piece that you're talking about was all over the place many times, I believe for years. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, were you aware that Secretary of Commerce visited Epstein's Island, and do you continue to have...
No, I wasn't aware of it, no. I didn't. I actually haven't spoken to him about it. I wasn't. But from what I hear, he was there with his wife and children. And I guess in some cases, some people were. I wasn't. I was never there. Somebody will someday say that. I was never there. Yeah, please.
This announcement that you made today, Mr. President, comes on the heels of a January jobs report that smashed industry expectations.
Smashed all records.
And a big feature of that was you reprivatizing the economy, an economy that was bloated with federal employment under the previous president. What's your message to Americans following this jobs report that smashed industry expectations? Is this just a sign that the best is yet to come?
Thank you. The jobs report's amazing in certain ways because we have tremendously fewer federal employees, way down. And now I could have left them and added to what we did, and we would have had almost 100% employment. I could have gotten a great kick out of the fact that we're 100% employed. But we got rid of tremendous numbers of federal workers, and they hated me for it. Now they love me because most of them have gotten jobs in the private sector for 2 and 3 times more money than they were being paid by the federal government. We had some jobs where you had 10 workers for one job, 10 workers for a job that one person should be doing. And we've gotten rid of a lot of those jobs. And by getting rid of them, these people became available to work in the private sector. And as you know, the numbers are incredible. So the job numbers are incredible. The financial numbers are beyond belief. Again, they thought it couldn't be done in 4 years, and I did it in 1 year. And the numbers you're going to see is these, I don't know if you notice also construction numbers, the jobs for construction workers. You know why? Because they're building plants all over the United States. That's why. And when these plants open in a year from now, some sooner, some a little bit later, but when these auto plants, AI plants, and thousands of other types of plants, when they open over the next period of a year, year and a half, you're going to see numbers like we've never seen before in this country. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Let's go.
That was President Trump and EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin speaking this morning about having changed several regulations that have been in place for quite some time, specifically as they relate to your vehicle. That part of your vehicle that stops, particularly the newer vehicles, that stops your car's engine once you're stopped at a stoplight will be changed. It's one of the many changes the Trump administration is going to institute now as it turns around some of those old regulations. Well,
has been out there calling Trump a fascist, a dictator, all the usual left-wing garbage nonsense. And the reason he's doing it, Jack, is because he's a crook himself. And he just wants to talk about anything other than the fact that he was right at the center of the Minnesota fraud scheme. This is the Attorney General of the state. He should be prosecuting bad guys, and instead, he had this Somali crime ring into his own office. He took $10,000 in donations from these people, and in return, he asked his staff to get the investigators off their backs. I mean, it's unbelievable. He should be in jail, and he was trying to fight me on it and talk over me. I mean, he couldn't. You should have seen his eyes. You know, he couldn't believe I was confronting him on this. And I finally just said to him, you ought to be in jail. You should be indicted for this. He ought to be in prison for this. This is the kind of fraud that is rampant. It is rampant, and we got to root it out.
Well, and so as you're conducting this investigation, you're looking into it. Obviously, these were federal funds that flowed through the fraud, not only to these organizations, Feeding Our Future, which is completely fraudulent, taking money away that was meant for needy children. But as you say, this was then translated into campaign coffers. And so the person who's supposed to be looking out for the people of Minnesota, looking out, of course, for justice in Minnesota, was not only overlooking this, he was benefiting from it. And when you think about Keith Ellison, a guy who, as you say, he's you know an anti-Trump partisan. He's promoted the Antifa handbook. We've got his own tweets. He's promoting it up fully, telling everyone to go and read it. This is a situation where I don't think people realize, how did Minnesota just get to this point?
Yeah, and this is why. It's because people like this guy who are supposed to be there, he's the chief law enforcement officer. He's supposed to be prosecuting the bad guys. Instead, he is a bad guy. He's welcoming them into his office. And get this, the reason we know that he met with all of these fraudsters is because they recorded it. Hilariously, they recorded it. 54 minutes of live tape. It's on the internet. Anybody can listen to it. I've listened to it. And what you hear is over and over and over again, they offer him campaign cash if he will intervene intervene and get the investigators off of their backs. By the way, this was just a few weeks before the FBI raided the Feeding Our Futures, the central fraud nexus, before they raided their headquarters. So here's the Attorney General of the state meeting with these people. They're saying, we'll give you cash. He says, oh, that's great. Let me know whatever I can do. He gets the investigators off their backs, or pretends to, and he takes the money. Just days after he meets with these people, $10,000 he takes personally. They also made a contribution to his son. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. I can't imagine why he has not been indicted. He should be indicted federally and tried and go to prison. But you want to know why we have so much fraud in America and why there's so much fraud in Minnesota? That's the reason.
So when we look at this, I mean, it's staggering fraud. I mean, this seems like the type of purchasing of public officials that you would see generations ago, like a mafia organization or something like this. I struggle to even find something that compares to it. The Abscam scandal, for example, is something where a number of congressmen were, sort of rolled up in that years ago. There's a couple of movies about that people can go see, and it's staggering the fact that he didn't even see. Was he remorseful? Was he, at all, willing to work with the federal government to try to at least roll up people in this network?
Oh, no. I mean, listen, whistleblowers came to him when he first got sworn in as Attorney General. Whistleblowers came to him and said, you got a big problem with this program, Feeding Our Future. It's a scam operation. What did he do? Nothing. He turned them away. And don't take my word for it. The liberal Minneapolis Star Tribune, or whatever it's called, their local newspaper, has done an investigation. And they said the guy repeatedly turned away whistleblowers. It's all on the record. And now we know why. It's because he was looking for an angle. He was looking for a way to profit. And sure enough, when they came to him, they said, we'll give you money. You listen to that 54 minutes of tape. I can't tell you how much of it is spent talking about money. And this is with the sitting Attorney General of the state. The fraudsters are sitting there and saying, we'll give you money. Where do you want the money? We've got a lot of money. And he's just saying, oh, that's great. That's great. And then he takes the cash. This is the kind of corruption that we have got to root out everywhere. The federal government and the state governments. And I tell you what, the left has been so complicit in this for so long, they hardly recognize anymore that there's anything wrong with it.
Now, here's what's confusing to me, because the last I checked, in 2024, there was a Minnesota statewide official who ran for vice president as the national party candidate, one of the standard bearers, the vice presidential candidate on the Democrat ticket. Was any of these scandals, or were any of these scandals reported on CNN, New York Times, Washington Post? How did they seem to miss all of this? Because, of course, we know the governor, I don't know if he's on 54 minutes of tape, but certainly he's up to his ears in quite a bit of this as well.
You know what? He does show up on the tape, as a matter of fact. At one point, the Attorney General says, I can tell you that Waltz is with me on this. He's against all this piddly-diddly looking in to all of these businesses and looking over their shoulders. In other words, Waltz doesn't want any scrutiny on it. And what do we see? Massive fraud like there has never been in any state before in the union. And of course, the media ignored it because it was inconvenient. It was an inconvenient story. Waltz was supposed to be Mr. Squeaky Clean, coach, whatever. All of that turns out to be untrue. In fact, the guy is absolutely up to his eyeballs in corruption. He was enabling it. His Attorney General seems to have been profiting off of it. It is corruption everywhere you look. And people like this need to be indicted. I was an attorney general once in my state. I indicted people who did this stuff. Ellison ought to be indicted. Anybody who did this should be indicted. That's how you put a stop to it.
Well, I think that's right. Now, obviously, you're digging into this. You're pushing on it. You've had this moment that's gone incredibly viral. Do we, or have you had any discussions with the Department of Justice about this? U.S. attorneys talking about grand juries, anything about getting the ball rolling from, or that you've heard of at least from that perspective?
Well, I haven't talked to him about Ellison, who was in front of me today, but I applaud them, and I applaud President Trump for creating this new attorney general, assistant attorney general, who's going to go after fraud and whose remit will be 100% fraud, because we need it. And I just urge him to start right there with the attorney general. I mean, just look today at his testimony, look at the record. It's all there, and you can follow the money. I mean, $9 billion in fraud. Get this, Jack. They were flying out of the Minneapolis airport. They were flying suitcases stuffed with $100 bills. They took out 14,000 pounds of $100 bills in suitcases out of the Minneapolis airport. I mean, that's the level of corruption we're talking about, and nobody stopped him. Nobody stopped him. That money ought to come back to U.S. taxpayers, and the people involved in it need to go to jail.
Well, that's exactly right. And so when we were in Minneapolis here on this program, I sat down with Secretary Bessent, and when we talked about this, he even talked about how some of the money that's we're not exactly sure if all of this money from the airport was from Feeding Our Future. I'm sure there were other things as well. But he mentioned that some of the money from Feeding Our Future not only made it onto those airplanes, but made it all the way back to Somalia and even made it into the coffers of Al-Shabaab, which is an Al-Qaeda-linked terrorist organization, the kind that I used to go after and my friends would go after when we were in the intelligence community. I mean, it staggers the mind that taxpayer money could end up in a terrorist cell after going through the airport and putting on a suitcase. This is like the worst Bruce Willis movie I've ever heard of.
Yeah, it's unconscionable. I mean, is the real answer. I mean, you have to laugh because it's just so unbelievable. But really, at the end of the day, it is unconscionable that the American people are getting ripped off to this extent, that their hard-earned money, you think about the people who scraped and worked to make enough money that they then pay their taxes, they're good citizens, they pay up, and what happens to their money? It gets funneled by a bunch of fraudsters over to drug trafficking rings and terrorists in Somalia and elsewhere. People like Keith Ellison are trying to get kickbacks from it. I mean, it's unbelievable. No wonder people are angry. You know, I mean, the media never gets it. They're like, oh, why are people so upset about this? Well, gee, I don't know. Maybe because you've ripped them off on a scale we've never seen before. And it's corruption everywhere you look. We've got to root it out.
And they tell you it's not happening. Well, we can see it. Senator, that's just about all the time we have for today. But before I let you go, you know, I got to ask you, we did have the Super Bowl this past weekend, but then there was another competition halfway through. We had over at Turning Point threw a little halftime show of our own. And in addition to that, which one did you watch?
I can tell you I didn't watch Bad Bunny or whatever his name is. Yours was amazing. You guys were awesome.
Thank you very much, Senator. God bless. We hope to see you back on soon. Phenomenal work for the people of this country. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Hey folks, it's your friend John Rich. I co-founded Old Glory Bank because we heard too many stories about people getting canceled by their bank because they didn't agree with their politics. The government wanted to know where you shop. If you bought a Bible or you shopped at a sporting goods store, you're probably on a list. We created Old Glory Bank because America needed a bank that would protect their privacy and security. Exercising your constitutional rights is not a criminal activity, and neither is loving your country. At Old Glory Bank, we stand with you.
I'm a J6er. I spent 1,143 days in prison.
About a year in prison.
We were prosecuted, persecuted.
J6ers have been treated like terrorists.
And we need your help.
Stand in the Gap was founded to stand in the gap for J6ers working to rebuild their lives after being incarcerated.
For just $10 or more, you can help these patriots get back on their feet again. Every dollar you give is being matched up to $50,000. Go now to j6support.com and donate today. Now is the moment to put your brand in front of an engaged, loyal audience through Real America's Voice. When you advertise on Real America's Voice, you're not just running an ad, you're partnering with trusted voices like Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, and other influential hosts. Backed by millions of monthly listeners.
What's happening? Because of a Real Voice, man. I watch it all the time.
Real America's Voice rocks.
Real America's Voice gives sponsors the chance to put their product front and center, displayed on screen and highlighted by our anchors during exclusive segments and live events.
Head to freetrumpknife.com.
This means your brand becomes part of the conversation as it happens.
Secure your spot before it's too late.
Join us today and make your brand part of the news conversation that America's viewers trust. Real America's Voice, where your message is seen, heard, and remembered.
I'm Chris from Illinois, and we like to watch Real America's Voice in the War Room with Stephen K. Bannon for all the great guests. Everyone from Kerry Lake, the great Frank Gaffney, Trump coming for retribution.
Hello, all you Ravagers. I'm Billy Howell, your old buddy Carefree Largo from the chat, and I'm thrilled to be part of the Rav family. When I want to be heard, I use my Real America's Voice.
They talk about influencers. These are influencers, and they're friends of mine. Jack Posobiec. Where's Jack? Jack, he's done a great job.
All right, folks, Jack Posobiec back live, Human Events Daily. Folks, let me tell you something straight up. Everybody knows I'm a little bit picky when it comes to what I put in my body and what companies I support. And Blackout Coffee checks every single box. We're talking about family-run American company roasting fresh coffee right here in the USA, built by people who believe in hard work, freedom, and this country. Let me tell you, 2026, huge year. This year marks the 250th anniversary of the United States of America, and Blackout Coffee is celebrating it all year long with new roasts, limited editions, and some very exciting releases coming. I drink Blackout Coffee every single day. We're talking morning shows, late nights, travel days, all of it. It's smooth, it's strong, it's always fresh. Once you switch, there is no going back. They got something for everyone. The Morning Reaper, the best-selling medium roast. It's smooth, it's never bitter. Brutal Awakening, a bold, dark roast that actually wakes you up. And for 2026, you gotta try the 1776 dark roast, which I've been loving, by the way. It's rich, it's unapologetic. They made it to honor America's founding. We got a box of it at the beginning of the year, and we just blew right through it. It's amazing between me and my dad because he keeps drinking it too. Ladies and gentlemen, your coffee will show up fresh. It's on schedule, and they never run out, even when your dad is, drinking all your coffee. They also have instant coffee, total game changer. We're not talking some, weak gas station powder. Real Blackout Coffee in a packet, no machine, no mess. Add water, stir, and you're ready to roll. It's perfect for work, travel, or keeping in your desk or go bag. Go to blackoutcoffee.com/POSO and use promo code POSO for 20% off your first order. That is blackoutcoffee.com/POSO. Support American jobs and celebrate 250 years of American freedom. Drink coffee that tastes incredible because every sip should feel like a win. All right, folks, there's another controversy a brewing. So we talked about this, a little bit when I was on Tim Pool last night, and I want to get into it now because there's so many people who came up to me and they said, well, we liked your show, Jack. We liked the Turning Point, what they did, the All-American Halftime Show. But the Bad Bunny show, it wasn't political. You can't say it was political. There's nothing woke. There were two guys grinding on each other at one point, so that was a little much. But they're saying there wasn't any politics. And my question is, well, do you think politics just means talking about Donald Trump? Do you think politics just means talking about ICE? Or is there another way of looking at this situation that is, in fact, heavily political? To answer this question for us, we had to bring on Aaron McIntyre of the Aaron McIntyre Show on Blaze TV once again. Aaron, how are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
So, Aaron, let's get started. We were doing the "What is an American" question pretty much for like the last year and a half, but now I think we have to do that. We have to go to another level. Aaron, what is politics?
Well, politics is obviously the contest between different groups for resources, and what you hope ultimately is that you don't have politics in every cultural event. You want to have events like the Super Bowl where people could come together, share an understanding, put any differences aside. But unfortunately, when you have a scenario where everything in your culture is ultimately being divvied up between the different sides, politics will seep into everything. So you like you say, a lot of people will simply look at this and say, well, no one dissed Donald Trump. He didn't get up there and say, I hate Donald Trump. I hate Republicans. I hate ICE. He didn't do that. But what he did do was first just perform entirely in Spanish, in a language that is not our own. He brought all the imagery that was entirely built on Hispanic culture, not normal, typical American mainstream culture. He made sure to march with flags from across the entire North and South America, displaying those flags proudly as if perhaps he had conquered something. These are all aspects, as along with the gay grinding and everything else you pointed out. These are all coded messages. They're coded a specific way. They are inherently political at this point. They are not giving us a neutral celebration of the American spirit or ideal. It is giving us a very specific leftist narrative on what America should be. And that's what he's delivering, even if he doesn't say, I hate Donald Trump in the middle of it.
Right, and the message that we see on the football, and I said, did George Soros write this himself, or maybe his son Alex wrote it? It says, "Together we are America." So they bring out all the flags of every country in the Western Hemisphere for the most part, and then it's the phrase, "Together we are America." This is open borders globalism. This is multiculturalism. This is the entire project of the left. why did so many conservatives look at this and say, oh, I don't see anything political here at all?
I think, for one, people want it to be true. They want to believe that the woke has been put away. They want to believe that they're going to go back to a somewhat sane left that's just talking about more, health insurance or higher taxes. They don't want to believe that they're going to be trapped in a culture war forever, and they want an excuse to be able to turn on football without thinking about it. I understand all these things. I understand not wanting to be constantly in this state of a culture war, constantly being in this low-grade conflict that we're dealing with, being able to just simply enjoy the things that you love. But sorry, we don't get to opt out of this conflict just because we don't want to be a part of it. That's not how things work. The left is pushing to take over your culture. They're looking to replace the current American population with foreigners. They're looking to rig the electoral system permanently so that they can be in charge, and there is no hope of changing things. We cannot sit back and pretend that isn't happening. And it's just as true with our culture. That's why what you guys are doing with TPUSA is so important. You have to have an alternative. You have to give people a reason to come back and believe in America, to believe in conservatism, the right, what the vision that we see. Because if you simply let the left dominate the culture without any pushback, it's a failure. Are you ever going to have exactly what the Super Bowl has? Are you going to have those hundreds of millions of viewers and dollars? Probably not, but you are going to provide a true alternative, and that is critical.
And look, that's exactly the situation that we found ourselves in, because when we called it the All-American Halftime Show, that was a deliberate choice. That was a deliberate choice to come up and say, this is about celebrating one flag. This is about celebrating one people, the American people. And yes, we if there was any messaging there, it was that we should always do that. We should always stand up for our people, that we should put our culture first. And a celebration of the type of music, by the way, that middle America listens to, that tens of millions of people, hundreds of millions of people listen to: country music, rock music, which has been systemically rejected and deplatformed by the NFL and the Super Bowl for decades at this point. And look, it's all glory to God for his grace. And, you want to stay humble, because this was all him in terms of getting us to the 40, 50 million people that we had for it. But also it speaks, I think, to the backlash of getting this false multiculturalism jammed down our throats every time we turn on a TV and just want to enjoy the Super Bowl. Right back, Jack Posobiec, Aaron McIntyre, Human Events Daily.
Hey folks, it's your friend John Rich. I co-founded Old Glory Bank because we heard too many stories about people getting canceled by their bank because they didn't agree with their politics. The government wanted to know where you shopped. If you bought a Bible or you shopped at a sporting goods store, you're probably on a list. We created Old Glory Bank because America needed a bank that would protect their privacy and security. Exercising your constitutional rights is not a criminal activity, and neither is loving your country. At Old Glory Bank, we stand with you.
I'm a J6er. I spent 1,143 days in prison.
About a year in prison.
We were prosecuted, persecuted.
J6ers have been treated like terrorists.
And we need your help.
Stand in the Gap was founded to stand in the gap for J6ers working to rebuild their lives after being incarcerated.
For just $10 or more, you can help these patriots get back on their feet again. Every dollar you give is being matched up to $50,000. Go now to j6support.com and donate today. Now is the moment to put your brand in front of an engaged, loyal audience through Real America's Voice. When you advertise on Real America's Voice, you're not just running an ad, you're partnering with trusted voices like Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, and other influential hosts. Backed by millions of monthly listeners.
What's happening? Because of the Real Voice, man. I watch it all the time.
Real America's Voice rocks.
Real America's Voice gives sponsors the chance to put their product front and center, displayed on screen and highlighted by our anchors during exclusive segments and live events.
Head to freetrumpknife.com.
This means your brand becomes part of the conversation as it happens.
Secure your spot before it's too late.
Join us today and make your brand part of the news conversation that America's viewers trust. Real America's Voice, where your message is seen, heard, and remembered.
I'm Chris from Illinois. We like to watch Real America's Voice in the War Room with Stephen K. Bannon for all the great guests. Everyone from Kerry Lake, the great Frank Gaffney, Trump coming forward, retribution.
Hello, all you Ravagers. I'm Billy Howell, your old buddy Carefree Largo from the chat, and I'm thrilled to be part of the Rav family. When I want to be heard, I use my Real America's Voice.
Where's Jack? Where's Jack? Where is he? Jack, I want to see you. Great job, Jack. Thank you. What a job you do. You know, we have an incredible thing. We're always talking about the fake news and the bad, but we have guys, and these are the guys who should be getting Pulitzers.
All right, Jack Posobiec, we're back live here, Human Events, daily Real America's Voice, and coming off the heels of the All-American halftime show, we wanted to express some of the political fusions and tensions and that went in the underpinning of all of this. And we've got Aaron McIntyre on here, who's great because he understands sort of the big view of politics. So Aaron, the way I've been describing it is that the All-American halftime show, it broke containment, that it went far beyond, just what Turning Point was doing, what Human Events was doing. It just caught the public's attention, and this is why I say it was God's motivation and God's power, and obviously Charlie inspired the entire thing, but and obviously Kid Rock's stardom, his celebrity status ended, I think, lended a lot to that. But let me ask you this question. From that same perspective, why is it that so many Americans, even if they can't articulate, right, just can't articulate what it is that they liked about this show, why is it that there was so much pent-up demand for a show like this?
Well, like you said, I think for years, the NFL has been specifically ignoring middle America and what they love. And as much as it may not seem like it because we're constantly bombarded with everything else, country music continues to be the most listened to genre in the United States. It has the largest audience, and yet it is not served at all in our culture, and certainly not in our major events. And that's not a mistake. Of course, there's also a huge understanding that people simply want to be proud of the United States. They don't want to lecture about their culture. They certainly don't want a celebration of someone else's culture. If you look at the stands during that performance, most of the people looked entirely confused. Even the performance itself was so lifeless, because we can see in this shot plenty of people clapping along, they're singing, they're enjoying it. But the NFL turned their halftime show basically into social media extravaganza. There is no crowd on the field. There's no one cheering. There's no one clapping. They're not participating. They don't care because it's not even in the language they speak. People desperately needed something that they could rally behind, that they felt represented the United States, that they've been hungering for and been denied by the NFL for many years. And I think that's why when you have that opportunity, when you have that alternative, people really respond. And while this is just the first time this has happened, I guarantee you that if this becomes an ongoing thing, that this is going to start becoming an event that people want to be a part of, that artists want to be a part of. It could make the name of up-and-coming artists who want to celebrate the United States and care deeply about this country. We need to start thinking of this as the opportunity to launch careers, to create influence, and to push the idea that ultimately this is the type of America that people want to see.
And it's clearly, it clearly has the backing there. And I think that it speaks to those, what we've been talking about, what is an American? It speaks to those cultural bonds. They want to see a show that reflects their culture. They want to see a show that reflects who they are, their community, what they stand for. Flag, family, Jesus Christ, faith. I mean, we deliberately kept this very, very simple to try to reach the widest audience possible. And I think that's the reason that it was so successful, why the industry is, and you see the media ops right now, they're running so many, they're playing all these games where they're, using one system of ratings to rank the Super Bowl show, but another system of ratings to rank our show, and making it look like there's this massive disparity, when actually if you take away some of the, the Nielsen formulas, that it's actually, It is comparable. I'll put it that way. And I'm not going to say we beat it, but I'm going to say it's actually much more comparable than they would like to admit, because we were able to get a lot of those eyeballs over. But Aaron, to your point, and I want to ask you about this, is that it is political. Culture itself is political. This was what Andrew Breitbart taught us, that politics is downstream of culture. That's why they're pushing multiculturalism on this cultural stage.
And I think it's important for people to remember that, there's a lot of people currently debating, especially online right now, can right-wingers make art? Can conservatives make art? Is it dangerous to have political art? And the truth is that, yes, you don't want to have the politics lead the art. You want to have something that talks about life that people can understand and relate to. But none of the performers at your event were political in the sense of they were writing all of their songs just about politics. Kid Rock was writing a lot of songs that had nothing to do with conservatism, and ultimately he has grown. In fact, that was one of the beautiful things displayed through his set. He begins with a song that was written at a time where he wasn't Christian and wasn't conservative and wasn't looking for those values, and then evolves slowly to preaching the gospel at the end, showing that arc of who he's become. And I think that's what people are looking for. Yes, it's conservative. Yes, it's right wing. Yes, ultimately we are organizing this in politically in a sense, but the art itself is about his life. The art itself is about the journey he's been on. And this is true of so many other people performing there. So yes, there will be a political background involved in this, because as you say, ultimately this event exists because there is a culture war, and we can't lie about that. But the art is not hitting you in the face necessarily with its politics. It's telling you a story that people can relate to, and that's what they want to see.
Yeah, it's an amazing story about, and when I was there, I started seeing some of the elements. The string section shows up. I'm like, why do we have a string section for Kid Rock? And then, because I could start to see the puzzle pieces being put together, because he told us that he had this vision, but like most artists, I wasn't really sure what he meant that he was going for. But then when I finally saw it on stage, I said, oh my gosh, this is a redemption story. That's what it is. It's that redemption arc of himself. Here's me as Kid Rock, the money, the fame, the girls, the high flying, the concerts, everything, the hard living. But then there's this salvation moment, and that's the strings. And then he gets reintroduced as Robert Ritchie, which is his actual name, and then he plays the final song, dedicates it to Charlie at the very end, but then is also telling people to find Jesus. I mean, that is art. That is actually a story through art, and he's showing his own journey through all of that. Aaron McIntyre, thank you so much for joining us. Incredible analysis as always, and yeah, man, we endeavor to do this again, and have to pick your brain about some of this stuff when we put together the next one.
Did a great job, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. All right, folks, we promised you that we would have assets on the ground, and assets on the ground we do have. We want to go now live to Tucson, Arizona, the Catalina foothills, where Human Events field correspondent and RAV field correspondent Kevin Posobiec is currently stationed, I believe, right outside of Nancy Guthrie's home. Kevin, are you there?
Yes, I am, Jack. Yes, I am. And glad to be with you.
And that's where you are? You're outside the residence?
Yes. Let me show you real quick here.
There it is.
You want to talk culture, you want to talk politics. At the end of the day, this is what it's all about right here. It says, "Dear Guthrie family, your neighbors stand with you." A lot of people came to show flowers out front. This just happened about an hour ago. There's even a little Mary candle there. Other flowers, and we've seen yellow ribbons strewn along cactuses and trees nearby here. It is on guard. There's Pima County Sheriff's truck right behind me as well. And as everyone has seen, is a developing story today that the forensics team has come and conducted procedures to collect more evidence. And what we've seen is, I believe, more gloves have been acquired. That's the latest. And aside from that, possibly more fingerprints. It's all been taken in to the station. They're going over it and researching what they can find. I mean, there's been 18,000 tips given in So it's going to take some time to filter out, and hopefully we'll see some more people detained here, or whatever it takes, honestly. But at the end of the day, I mean, this is a very nice neighborhood, and we're coming together just to keep the prayers going as Christians, and we want to see Nancy come home safely.
Well, and Kevin, this of course, you mentioned the yellow ribbons did you say the yellow ribbons are tied around cactuses? Is that what you said?
A few of them, yeah, not many.
Wow,
but
so that's of course people know. Yeah. People know, of course, you tie a yellow ribbon. This, of course, associated with the military. But the meaning is come home safe. That we want people to come home safe. This is a tradition that goes, I think, back to World War I, for families that have someone who's serving in the military, and yet in this situation, a symbol, right? An American symbol, American culture, a shared culture that we have, and quite frankly, that we celebrate. That's why when you have a situation like this with so many moving parts, that you want to look into it, because we have to investigate and get to the bottom of it, no matter where the investigation goes. And so Kevin Posobiec there on the ground doing the live reporting for Human Events and Real America's Voice. We'll be right back next segment.
Hey folks, it's your friend John Rich. I co-founded Old Glory Bank because we heard too many stories about people getting canceled by their bank because they didn't agree with their politics. The government wanted to know where you shop. If you bought a Bible or you shopped at a sporting goods store, you're probably on a list. We created Old Glory Bank because America needed a bank that would protect their privacy and security. Exercising your constitutional rights is not a criminal activity, and neither is loving your country. At Old Glory Bank, we stand with you.
I'm a J6er. I spent 1,143 days in prison.
About a year in prison.
We were prosecuted, persecuted.
J6ers have been treated like terrorists.
And we need your help.
Stand in the Gap was founded to stand in the gap for J6ers working to rebuild their lives after being incarcerated.
For just $10 or more, you can help these patriots get back on their feet again. Every dollar you give is being matched up to $50,000. Go now to j6support.com and donate today. Now is the moment to put your brand in front of an engaged, loyal audience through Real America's Voice. When you advertise on Real America's Voice, you're not just running an ad, you're partnering with trusted voices like Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, and other influential hosts. Backed by millions of monthly listeners.
What's happening? Because of the Real Voice, man. I watch it all the time.
Real America's Voice rocks.
Real America's Voice gives sponsors the chance to put their product front and center, displayed on screen and highlighted by our anchors during exclusive segments and live events.
Head to freetrumpknife.com.
This means your brand becomes part of the conversation as it happens.
Secure your spot before it's too late.
Join us today and make your brand part of the news conversation that America's viewers trust. Real America's Voice, where your message is seen, heard, and remembered.
I'm Christian, Illinois. We like to watch Real America's Voice in the War Room with Stephen K. Bannon for all the great guts. Everyone from Kerry Lake, the great Frank Gaffney, Trump coming forward, retribution.
Hello, all you Ravagers. I'm Billy Howell, your old buddy Carefree Largo from the chat, and I'm thrilled to be part of the Rav family. When I want to be heard, I use my Real America's Voice.
Jack is a great guy. He's written a fantastic book. Everybody's talking about it. Go get it. And he's been my friend right from the beginning of this whole beautiful event. And we're going to turn it around and make our country great again. Amen.
All right, Jack Posobiec, we are back live, Human Events, daily, Real America's Voice. Kevin Posobiec live on the ground, right outside of Nancy Guthrie's residence. Kevin, walk us through the scene. So you're outside of the house. There's people around. Describe the situation.
Yeah, so to my left and right are about 40 other media companies. This is jam-packed, this whole street. All the media is here, and we just wrapped up a forensics procedure a few hours ago.
Can you show that a little bit? Can you show? Can you show us that a little bit at all? Are you able to turn the camera?
Yeah, I can gently walk with you here. So we have a sheriff's truck on guard. He is in the driveway, and just beyond him is the archway where the Nest camera footage was retrieved. And then there's, the other driveway here. That's where more agents or officers were their tools and whatnot and their kits coming in and out. So I got some content of that earlier, and nothing breakthrough yet, and it was just so there, right there off is where the tent was, and there's been various drones. Several news agencies they have drones giving overhead shots, but also so I have these binocular see. Whose drones are they? Is it just media, or is it police? Is it county police, or is it state police? These are things that I asked while I was in Minneapolis. So another point I wanted to bring up was that, in particular, I saw 2 helicopters earlier, and we've heard reports of BORTAC, Border Patrol, being involved as well, but also the police. So interesting point is that Pima County Police, or Pima County itself, is about 9,000 miles total. And that's larger than some East Coast states. So, for everybody that's saying, oh, why is it taking so long, this and that, like, these guys are spread out across the state. Okay. And this is a very unique case. So they still need to be the police for the rest of this gigantic county. And so I think that's also why, Sheriff Nanos reached out to the FBI for help, because they're just simply overwhelmed. I mean, this is a nationwide story now.
Kevin, one of the things that we're also hearing is that the cooperation level between Sheriff Nanos and the federal government is still icy, that the cooperation is not going as smoothly as they wanted, that the sheriffs are not allowing the federal investigators to take full charge of the investigation. And so something that we're clearly looking at, similar to what you saw in Minneapolis, they're refusing to work with them. And this may actually be a political issue, because this is a Democrat and the Trump administration, obviously Republicans. So, Kevin, do you really think, and of course there's vehicles coming in behind you here, so I want to everyone to know this is a neighborhood. People still live here. Obviously, it's not like it's all shut down. But Kevin, walk me through some of that. Does it seem to be that there's a political reason that they don't want the federal government to come in and fully take charge of this investigation?
I mean, it's definitely very hot right now because of the anti-ICE measures and just the overall narrative of anti-federal overreach, authoritarianism, etc. So I guess in general, there might be a little of that lingering here, but obviously also, I mean, Savannah Guthrie is with NBC News. She's a famous host. So I mean, there's all kinds of theories going around, and most of it's speculation. I'm trying to give you guys the evidence here as it comes, but I mean, politically, yeah. So another interesting point, Jack, is that. So the call from Savannah to Senator Kelly in the very beginning, before the news broke, Senator Kelly is married to Gabby Giffords. Okay. So that story about 15 years ago happened, and a brutal story. I mean, thank goodness she survived.
Horrific shooting right there in Tucson.
Yeah. So that's what I believe.
Look, you can still wait, Kevin. You can actually see there's people behind you right now. They're putting down flowers, and I have to say, it just reminds me a lot of people coming and to just, you're not far from Phoenix, where we held the vigil at Turning Point headquarters for Charlie, and it certainly reminds me in many ways of that.
And yes, amen. And to that point too, for the record, at Alex Preddy's death site and Renee Goods, I did stop and pray. So this is, for me personally, it's about politics, sure, but it's also beyond that. At this point, this is an old woman we're talking about. She's 84 years old. She's been gone for 2 weeks. They just want her home. They have the money. They have the means to do it. So we're just curious about the motive for all this that's happening. Like, why is this continuing? Why, like,
so, and Kevin, so one of the things that I wanted to ask you, you mentioned something about aircraft just now. What type of aircraft are we seeing? Those type of search helicopters? Are we seeing anything that may look like it's and it's we have footage of it right there. So walk us through what you got what this footage is.
Okay, so some of those are drones, but also I did see two, I believe were Apache helicopters. I'm probably mistaken there. No, they weren't Apaches. They were probably cargo ones. And but again, I wanted to know if that was either the Army or state police doing daytime combing of the surrounding areas as per requested by everybody, a 2 to 5 mile radius of this whole area. And as you can see, more flowers even being delivered now. But yeah. So that would make sense. That would check out for why helicopters will be patrolling the area.
So I just want to drill down on this. I just want to drill down in just a tight sentence. Can you tell us, have you seen helicopters up over the area of Nancy Guthrie's house today?
I saw about two. I saw about 2 helicopters, 2 military helicopters earlier today. I believe one may have been Border Patrol, one Army, and they didn't quite circle, but they did pass by pretty slowly to surveil the area. Absolutely.
So slow-moving helicopters. Now, we're talking about how high? Are we talking like, they're way up there, or do they seem closer to the ground?
Probably around 1,000 feet, I think. Yeah, not low by any means, but not high either. So about 1,000 feet.
Okay.
I think whatever standard is. Yeah.
Very, very interesting. So, it could be that there are aerial searches that are going on. Of course, we know from when Sheriff Lamb came on here recently, he was talking about the different sensors that those helicopters are equipped with, especially with BORTAC, that they have search and rescue capabilities, because that's what they do. They're manhunting for coyotes, for illegals when they make their crossings over, for our traffickers when they cross over. So being able to find an individual is certainly something that they are looking for.
And this is what would be in line with how the FBI has been involved. Obviously, the military has superior technology to seek what is in the ground or small objects or things that don't appear natural. I mean, we have AI now, for goodness sake. So they're probably utilizing new software and technology to further locate any items or bodies or any kind of clothing, anything
else. Kevin, we're up against a hard out. Tell us, real quick, where can people go to follow you? I understand you'll be going on a number of shows as we're reporting throughout the day and throughout the night for Real America's Voice. Where can they follow you?
You can follow me on X and Instagram at Kevin Posobiec. That is my real name. Sometimes on Substack, and also through Human Events Daily and Real America's Voice here, field correspondence. Yes, sir.
All right, Kevin Posobiec there on the ground in the thick of it with the media circus as well. Nancy Guthrie, the search for the missing woman. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, you have my permission to lay ashore.
Hey folks, it's your friend John Rich. I co-founded Old Glory Bank because we heard too many stories about people getting canceled by their bank because they didn't agree with their politics. The government wanted to know where you shopped. If you bought a Bible or you shopped at a sporting goods store, you're probably on a list. We created Old Glory Bank because America needed a bank that would protect their privacy and security. Exercising your constitutional rights is not a criminal activity, and neither is loving your country. At Old Glory Bank, we stand with you.
I'm a J6er. I spent 1,143 days in prison.
About a year in prison.
We were prosecuted, persecuted.
J6ers have been treated like terrorists.
And we need your help.
Stand in the Gap was founded to stand in the gap for J6ers working to rebuild their lives after being incarcerated.
For just $10 or more, you can help these patriots get back on their feet again. Every dollar you give is being matched up to $50,000. Go now to j6support.com and donate today. Now is the moment to put your brand in front of an engaged, loyal audience through Real America's Voice. When you advertise on Real America's Voice, you're not just running an ad, you're partnering with trusted voices like Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, and other influential hosts. Backed by millions of monthly listeners.
What's happening? Because of a real voice, man. I watch it all the time.
Real America's Voice rocks.
Real America's Voice gives sponsors the chance to put their product front and center, displayed on screen and highlighted by our anchors during exclusive segments and live events.
Head to freetrumpknife.com.
This means your brand becomes part of the conversation as it happens.
Secure your spot before it's too late.